Thank you so much. So I'm just going to ask both of you a couple of questions, and then we can open it up to the audience, because it's such an incredible opportunity to have you here and to talk about this monumental film that is Mother and the Whore. And one thing that maybe we can discuss with Charles, and maybe your interaction on this too, it's the movie has been for a really long time very difficult to see, both in France and in the US. There was a lot of issues in preserving the work and making it available. You became recently the head of Film du Losange, which is a quite well-known film company in France that has produced a lot of films from the new wave and post-new wave, and is still very vital movie distribution and production in France. So can you talk about how you managed to get the project off the ground in terms of restoring the film and sharing them, so we can now see Mother and the Whore, the rest of Eustache, and bringing them to festival and releases?
Well, very simply, we maybe you saw in the credits that Film du Losange is part of the producers. So the company that we bought last year, so it's very recent, was involved into the production. Barbet Schroeder and Eric Romer created Film du Losange 60 years ago, and Barbet helped in a way for the financing of The Mum and the War. So for me it was, I saw this film, I was 20 years old. It's really something which is very important in my connections with cinema, and I mean, for different reasons. So my first question when I arrived at Film du Losange was why the film is not into the company, what happened, it's impossible to see it, and they just told me that the son Boris didn't want the film to be screened, actually, and to be distributed. So I asked for a meeting and we discussed, and I don't know, I think we were lucky. It was the good moment. And I think the fact that, because when I heard about The Mum and the War, people were introducing it like, you know, it's this kind of film where the director just did one film. And it was in my mind like this during maybe 10 years, until I found les photos d'Alice, les petites amoureuses, le Père Noël a les yeux bleus, and all those films which are incredible, very modern, very strong, very powerful. So that was my discussion with Boris. You know, there is Jean Eustache is a huge director, huge artist. People are not aware of it. It's a moment, because after it will be too late. And we want to show those films. It's not just about this one. So he agreed. We made it happen, and after I was so enthusiastic with the idea to share this film, to restore it, that we jumped into it. We called back some of the people who worked on the film, and they worked on the restoration. You know, we put a lot of people on it, and the idea was to show the film in Cannes for the opening of the festivals. That's what we did, and the whole Eustache library was. I mean, it's very powerful to put words on the work of a director like this, and to try to put words on what he did, on what is his work, what it means today, what it has been. So we were lucky enough to work on it, and to sell the film all over the world. That's how Janus Criterion bought it for the US. So that's, and in France it was released in theaters in June. It did 35,000 tickets, which is very big for release, you know, this kind of film, and so that's what we did.
Thank you. Françoise, were you involved in bringing it back in the negotiation, or were you at all involved in the restoration also, or was your knowledge of the film, since you worked on it, and really important for the work of the restoration?
Si j'ai bien compris la question, je ne suis pas intervenue du tout au moment des négociations qui ont eu lieu avec Charles et l'héritier de Jean Eustache. Et j'étais très, très touchée que ce film cesse d'abord d'être invisible et puis qu'il risque de disparaître. Il y avait déjà eu une première intervention qui était il y a, mon Dieu, une vingtaine d'années, où le film qui était déposé dans une maison de production, cette maison de production a déclaré une faillite. Et j'ai appris ça incidemment et j'avais appelé un avocat en disant « Écoutez, on ne peut pas, parce que s'il y a faillite, il y a un négatif qui disparaît, etc. » Donc j'avais appelé et on avait pu sauver le négatif. Et donc je tenais vraiment à ce que ce film reste vivant et visible. Donc quand j'ai appris que c'était parti d'une autre manière, avec en plus toute la filmographie de Jean, ce qui est important, j'étais vraiment très très réjouie.
Tout va bien. If I understood the question correctly, I didn't participate in the negotiations between Charles and Jean Eustache's heir at all. I was very moved that this film was going to stop being invisible, and especially because this is a film that nearly disappeared. I had first intervened some 20 years ago when the production company that was responsible for the film at the time went bankrupt. And I happened to hear about this, and so I called a lawyer and I said, we have to do something because if the company goes bankrupt, that means the negative disappears. This is a film that I wanted to be alive, that I wanted visible. So I'm very happy that today the film is back, and not only just this film, but the entire very important filmography of Jean Eustache. It's really something that makes me joyous.
C'était Marie-Françoise.
Sorry, we're talking business. So you've been able to rewatch the film restored, Françoise. I think maybe you saw it in Cannes, and you've been able to rewatch it. Do you think or do you realize how impactful it's still today when people see the film, which is probably was a shock in 1973, but I think today, when you watch the film, it's still just as strong.
Vous avez deux questions là, entre comment j'ai ressenti le film restauré et puis l'accueil qui a été fait à l'origine, c'est-à-dire au moment de la première projection à Cannes, qui a été très agitée, et puis ce qui s'est passé cette année, finalement, la présentation à Cannes, qui était un moment de grande émotion, parce que j'étais là avec toute une armée de personnes disparues autour de moi, c'est-à-dire que le temps avait fait son travail. Donc, entre la première projection avec les gens qui ne supportaient pas le vocabulaire, qui réagissaient très fort, etc., et puis le fait que la présidente du jury, qui était Madame Ingrid Bergman, que j'adore, que je trouve une actrice extraordinaire, en tout cas dans les films de Rossellini, avait détesté le film. Donc moi, ça m'a quand même peiné. Et puis, quant à revoir une image qui a perdu, je dirais, de la brume du passé, donc voir réapparaître des images fortes, un son différent, et j'ai vu des choses que je n'avais pas ressenties. Mais c'est toujours pareil. Quand on voit un film à plusieurs années de distance, on ne voit pas le même film. Donc là, j'ai vu à quel point le personnage de Véronica pouvait être violente. Par exemple, à la fin de cette séquence où elle va vers l'hôpital Laennec et qu'elle dit à Jean-Pierre Léaud, enfin à Alexandre, d'aller se faire voir, les mouvements du sac m'ont surprise, j'avais oublié. On oublie aussi les choses qu'on a pu faire pendant un tournage. Donc, je ne sais pas si je réponds à votre question. Je vais laisser maintenant parce que je suis désolée, je suis très bas.
Ne vous inquiétez pas. Par contre, je ne vous ai pas entendu une seconde quand vous disiez la fin de la séquence. C'était décrivez la séquence
Oui,
encore une fois.
c'est quand Véronica revient, non, Jean-Pierre Léaud, enfin Alexandre ramène Véronica à l'hôpital Laennec.
Ah oui.
Et elle lui dit, elle lui donne des coups de sac. En disant,
Oui, je comprends très bien. Merci.
À la toute fin.
Très bien. Well, you've asked me two questions. One is how I felt about seeing the film restored, and the other is about the original reception of the film when it premiered at Cannes, which was a very tumultuous reception. And then there's what happened this year when the film was presented at Cannes, which was a tremendously moving moment because I was there surrounded by an army of people who had disappeared. You know, time had done its work. So, the first time that we screened the film, people couldn't deal with the film's vocabulary. They didn't tolerate, in a sense. And there was also the fact that the president of the jury, who is Madame Ingrid Bergman, an actress I love, at least in the films of Rossellini, hated the film, which made me very sad. Now, rewatching these images, they've lost the fog of the past, and it's like seeing these images reappear with different sounds and different feelings, and it's always the same thing. When you see a film again after many years, it's a different film. So for instance, in this sequence at the end of the film, when Veronica is in the hospital with Jean-Pierre Léaud, or Alexandre, and she hits him with the bag, I was surprised by the violence of my character. I was surprised by the movements of the bag. There's things that we forget that we've done that we rediscover like this.
Oui, je voudrais ajouter aussi que je l'ai vu, là c'est la version nouvelle, comme un documentaire sur Paris. C'est-à-dire que Paris a beaucoup changé. Il y a des endroits qui n'existent plus, le drugstore n'existe plus. Enfin, donc, c'est cet aspect-là qui m'a d'un seul coup fait réagir beaucoup parce que c'est un témoin du temps.
I'd also like to add that I saw this new version, the restored version, as a documentary on Paris, because Paris has changed a great deal. There are so many places that don't exist anymore. For instance, the drugstore, le drugstore, no longer exists. And so that aspect is something that I really reacted to strongly, because the film is a witness to time.
No. You said something really interesting at the beginning. You described the film very simply, and I think we should have used it as a blurb, which was A loves B, who loves C. And that's a sort of a summary of the film in a way. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on...
Well, it's because I usually say that that film is half Céline, the writer, and half Racine, the author, because of the vocabulary of Veronica and all the people could make us think about Céline, and that's the dramaturgy of the film belongs completely to Racine's play. A loves B, and B loves C, and everybody is unhappy.
And your English is really nice. Do you want to talk a little bit about the vocabulary and the language that's used in the film? It's very specific of that film, and it's quite different from the other film of Jean Eustache. This is the one where the language is flowing all the time, and it's really strong in the way the characters are speaking. But if you watch other films by Eustache, and particularly Mes Petites Amoureuses, My Little Lovers, the use of language is sort of opposite to it. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of the film and maybe of the long writing and the long dialogues that came with it for you as an actress?
Again, 2 or 3 questions. Okay, so the first one, I think that Jean Eustache is a writer, and the films are writer's film. And then the question about how to speak to anyone is at the center of his work. Because in The Mother and the Whore, Veronica does not stop talking. Alexander non plus, neither. Everybody. But in Les Petites Amoureuses, which is for me the same coin, la même pièce.
The same coin, the flip
la,
side of the
ouais,
coin?
Ouais.
Ouais.
The two faces, the mother and Mes Petites Amoureuses, the same, of the same coin. And it's very often the question of how to be in the world and how can we be in the world with language. If you can talk, you can be accepted. If you don't know how to say things, it's difficult to live. And I think it was the mainstream of that work, cette œuvre. Enfin, c'est clair? Yeah. Bon, merci. Alors, the question after was, c'était quoi la question suivante? En fait, c'était en tant qu'actrice, est-ce que vous avez beaucoup de ménage? How is it difficult to learn the text? No. No. No, it was like Jean Eustache. The only actor's direction was musical, because I heard the way of talking of the woman who is the character of Veronica. So it's like a melody, you know, and I learned the text, trying to find again that, comment on peut dire, cette mélopée, enfin, cette façon de chanter le texte.
The way of singing the text.
In a way. Mm.
You're very well known as an actress for this film, but you also have a very interesting career as an actress because you worked with many, I would say, eccentric directors, people who've had a very special way and sort of unique way of making a filmography. So you worked with Marguerite Duras, you worked a lot with Paul Vecchiali, you did a film with Gaspard Noé recently that was seen here. And you seem to pick directors for their particularity and not fitting into the mainstream and wanted to really stand out as an actress. Is it something that you're conscious of when you pick the role? Or is it the project that comes to you because you seem this way?
No, it's because I'm crazy.
So you attract insane directors?
Maybe. No, it's a difficult question because I became an actor by chance. So I had no idea of career, and I go on that way.
Well, it's always wonderful to see you on screen, even if we would like to see more of you. And I really love the performance you gave in the Gaspard Noé Vortex. It's quite a beautiful performance.
I'm sorry to say that it was a pleasure to do that film.
It was sort of a pleasure to watch it and sort of not as well. It does both sides of the coin. We could take some audience questions for Charles and Françoise also. I think we have microphones. Yes, okay. So if someone has and raise your hand because the lights are very bright in front of us. So you need to make, I think there's someone here. Yes. So with the Adidas.
First, I love the film and, of course, your performance in it. There's a lot of very long takes. You know, the big one, of course, is the monologue at the end. And I just want to know, in terms of doing a performance and sustaining that versus something where there's a lot of cutting and a lot of takes where that would be broken up, what is that like for you as an actress? Is that more challenging? Is that more natural for you to sustain just that level of emotion and how it progresses through those takes?
I need help.
Ouais. Alors, dans ce film, il y a beaucoup de très longs plans, surtout, je pense, au monologue à la fin. Et donc, pour garder l'intensité de ce genre de performance, est-ce que c'est plus difficile de travailler comme ça que, par exemple, quand il y a beaucoup de plans plus courts, beaucoup de prises? Quels sont les défis pour vous dans cette approche? Et surtout, la question tourne autour de la façon de maintenir l'intensité de l'émotion, je pense, dans ces plans, séquences.
Je vais répondre en français. L'essentiel de ce que je ressens et de ce que je fais quand je tourne, c'est de suivre un texte ou une situation, c'est-à-dire d'oublier absolument tout ce qui peut m'être propre à moi, personne en train de jouer, c'est-à-dire d'oublier vraiment de ne pas penser à moi, mais de passer vraiment de l'autre côté, de passer du côté du personnage. Il peut parler longtemps, il peut ne rien dire pendant un certain temps, mais c'est la même chose. C'est toujours de passer de l'autre côté, quoi. Il y a pas, je ne sais pas mieux dire.
The essential aspect of what I feel and do when I'm shooting is I follow a text or a situation, by which I mean that I absolutely forget everything about me as a person acting. I forget everything about me. I don't think about me. I go to the other side, the side of the character. And the character can talk for ages or can not talk for a long time. It's the same thing. The thing is to go to the other side. I don't know any better way of saying it.
And je voudrais ajouter, et aussi faire ce travail un peu de médium pour essayer de donner, de retrouver ce que le réalisateur a dans la tête.
And I'd also like to add this, which is to some extent to do this work of a medium or a psychic, of trying to find a little bit of what the director has in his or her head.
You have a question? Yeah. Oh. We need the microphone in the front.
On n'a pas discuté du tout. J'ai appris le texte. Et puis je sentais que je connaissais bien Jean Eustache. On a passé des années ensemble à la Cinémathèque. Donc je savais ce qu'il aimait au point de vue cinéma. Je savais je savais, je ne sais pas mieux dire. Et j'essayais de retrouver ce qu'on avait aimé dans les films à la Cinémathèque. Donc il n'y avait pas de théorisation de choses. C'était juste... et puis l'équipe était magnifique. Enfin, c'était une équipe très, très attentive, enfin très, très, très soutenante. Donc Je sais pas mieux dire, je sais pas. C'est non, vraiment c'est l'idée de. Je reviens à l'histoire du médium. C'est vraiment l'histoire de sentir, mais pareil pour Vortex. Enfin, avec Gaspard, on n'a pas parlé beaucoup de. On n'a pas fait un séminaire sur la perte de mémoire. Hein, on n'a pas fait ça, mais c'était aller à l'aventure en sentant qu'on est entouré. Et ça, c'est très précieux.
We didn't talk at all. I learned my lines, and then I could feel things. I knew Jean Eustache very well. We spent years together at the Cinematheque, and I knew what he liked in cinema. And I tried to find what we had liked in films at the Cinematheque. There was no theory of things. We also had a magnificent crew. They were very attentive, they were supportive. I don't really know a better way of putting it. I'll go back to this idea of the psychic. It's a question of feeling. It's like with Vortex. Gaspar and I did not talk much. We didn't do a seminar about the loss of memory. It's the idea of going on an adventure surrounded with people, supported by people, and that's a precious thing.
And someone had the microphone here,
Yes.
I think? Yes.
A question for Charles. You said Boris Eustache didn't want the film to be seen. Why was that? What were his objections to it?
I can't talk for him. It just, I think it was part of the dialogue with his father, who killed himself in 1981. And he was pretty young. And he had to fix something with it, you know. And but he tried. I mean, there were some screenings, sometime. The big thing with this film is that when somebody has seen it, you can. There are 3 or 4 ways for him to have seen it. It was at this date, at this place, or with this Japanese DVD, or this time where it was on TV. So every one of those screenings were an event, and every time Boris was giving the possibility for people to see the film right after, he needed to hide it, you know. We were talking at the dinner about that movie piece that you see, you know, what's the name of it? You know, l'extrait du film, l'extrait du film qui a été rajouté.
Les idoles.
Yeah, les idoles, but in English, I don't know.
The
Idols, yeah.
Oui,
Ouais.
oui,
So Jean Eustache was telling, you know, I need to do this cut into the film. Long after it was released, there's this piece that I need to cut. And when he died, Boris did this cut. And when we decided to work together, it was very recent, like a few months ago. There were different things, and I want to put it back because, yes, he wanted to cut it, but he didn't do it. So it took him 30 years to go to the second step, you know. So I don't know. It's I respect this. He had to fix something here, and the fact that people were very interested into the Mum in the War and talking less about other films was a problem for him. And he has his own idea on how it should be done, and he felt like what people wanted to do was not the good way. And he had a lot of arguments with the industry, you know. Literally all the companies in the French industry tried to get those films. So I don't know, it became a long story to the point where everybody forgot it and didn't try anymore. So it's a little mysterious, but I think he really liked Les Films du Losange did a great work to restore Eric Romer, Jacques Rivette, I mean, a lot of those great authors that, Jean Eustache knew pretty well. Again, it's a company which was close of Jean Eustache for different reasons. There's a person at Film de Losange called Régine Vial, who does a lot for cinema, even if you don't see her. And she had a good connection with him. It was very helpful too. So different things.
We can take one more question. There's someone here with a hat. The microphone is coming. Thanks.
François, did you and Jean-Pierre Léaud get along on set during the film? And have you guys watched it together since you've made it? I wonder what the kind of relationship that you guys had during the set and now.
C'est une question sur ton rapport avec Jean-Pierre Léaud. Est-ce que vous vous êtes entendu avec lui sur le tournage? Est-ce que depuis vous avez vu le film ensemble? Donc c'est une question sur vos rapports sur le tournage et depuis.
Joker.
Joker.
We can take... we can take one more question. There was someone...
I'm sorry.
It's part of the answer too, with Boris' connection with the film. So I'm sorry, Françoise, but this story that you saw there comes from original characters. It's pretty well known, you know. Jean Eustache is talking about his own life here, and I was surprised when we put those rights and start working on it, on how everything was so fresh. I mean, all the people involved into this film are very, very sensitive about it. And even if it happened like 40 years ago or even more, you feel like it happened 1 year ago. The shooting was just there. The relationship between people, the sensitivity of it, and how it's still very strong, very there.
Thank you. That was an incredible experience, and your performance was incredibly powerful and really sort of got under my skin. And 2 questions. One is, was there any improvisation at all? And the other is, which might be hard to answer, how do you get to the other side?
Alors, 2 questions. L'une, est-ce qu'il y avait de l'improvisation par moment? Et 2, qui est peut-être difficile, comment est-ce qu'on arrive de l'autre côté?
No improvisation, not at all. The text was set to the comma, and if you forget the comma, it was stop and do it again. So, and now the second question, I can't answer. Everyone finds his own way, and I'm sorry, I have no recipe.
I just want to finish by saying that it was really great to have you here, but also there's another screening of Mother and Daughter tomorrow night that you will present. And we bring the entire Jean Eustache catalog, filmography here at Film at Lincoln Center next year. Maybe Françoise will come back because she'll be traveling and being on a different journey with another film. And thank you so much for bringing this amazing work back to an audience and working with us. And thank you so much, Françoise, for coming here tonight. Thank you.